Over half of all new companies are dead by year 5. Some reports push that number even higher. A staggering 90% of all startups eventually fail. And here in Ontario, where over 500,000 small businesses power our provincial economy, those odds hit close to home. They never stop to ask the most important question: does anyone actually have this problem, and is it painful enough that they'd pay me to solve it? This trap is seductive because building feels like progress. Writing code, designing interfaces, perfecting features, that's tangible. But talking to strangers about their problems? Uncomfortable, messy. So founders retreat to their comfort zone and build in a vacuum. Here's the fix, and this also solves what I call the perfect product fallacy, where founders polish endlessly before anyone ever sees the product. Both traps have the same cure: stop building, start validating. Before you write a single line of code, your only job is to become an expert on the problem you think you're solving. Find at least 20 people in your target market and have a conversation. Ask about their workflow, their frustrations, how they currently handle the problem. Listen more than you talk. If they don't bring up the problem you're solving, it's probably not that important to them. Once you've validated the problem, test the solution with a minimum viable product, an MVP. This doesn't have to be code. It can be a landing page collecting email signups. It can be a slide deck you walk a customer through manually. Organizations like Mars Discovery District and the Business Development Bank of Canada, the BDC, run startup programs right here in Ontario that teach exactly this lean validation approach. Want an even more aggressive approach? Try Demo Sell Build. Create a compelling demo. Pre-sell it. Get a letter of intent or upfront payment. If someone pays before the product exists, you know you're onto something. Success isn't about being right the first time. It's about finding out you're wrong before you've spent everything. The second most common reason startups die: they run out of money. About 29% of all startup failures. One day you're operating, paying salaries, running ads, and the next, the bank account is empty. First-time founders often see a big number in their account and feel invincible. They hire too fast, lease expensive space, pour money into unproven marketing, all before they have a predictable revenue engine. This is called premature scaling, and it's a death sentence. The constant stress of a shrinking runway poisons everything. You can't think strategically about next year when you're worried about making payroll next month. Here's the fix. First, build a detailed financial plan. Not a one-time investor document, but a living spreadsheet you update constantly. Then, project your income and costs for at least 18 to 24 months. That gives you your burn rate, how much cash you're losing each month, and your runway, how many months until you're out. You have to know this number cold. Second, be ruthless about spending. Don't hire unless the pain of not having that person is acute. Don't spend on marketing until you know your customer acquisition cost, your CAC, and your lifetime value, your LTV. Prove that every dollar you put in returns more than $1 back. Third, understand fundraising timing. It always takes longer than you think. Start conversations with investors, or explore programs like FedDev Ontario and the Ontario Centres of Excellence at least 6 months before you need the money. Walking into a pitch with 2 months of runway left is like negotiating with a gun to your head. Financial discipline isn't glamorous, but it keeps you alive long enough to find success. A great idea with a weak team will fail. A great team can take a mediocre idea and turn it into a success. 23% of startups fail because they don't have the right team. The most common source? Co-founder disputes. Two friends start a company but never have the hard conversations up front. Who has final say? What happens if someone isn't pulling their weight? How is equity divided? Without clear answers, resentment builds. Arguments get personal. The mission gets lost. The other version, skill gaps. Two brilliant engineers, but nobody who knows how to sell, market, or manage the books. They build a technically excellent product, but slowly starve because no one can get it to customers. The fix. Be as deliberate about building your team as you are about building your product. If you have co-founders, you must have a formal founders agreement. Think of it as a prenup for your business. It defines roles, equity, vesting, and how to resolve disputes or part ways. In Ontario, keep in mind you'll also need to comply with the Employment Standards Act, the ESA, and the Occupational Health and Safety Act, the OHSA, once you start bringing people on. Getting your employment structure right from day one saves enormous headaches later. When hiring, focus on balance. If you're all technical, your first key hire should probably be in sales or marketing. For solo founders, build a network of mentors and advisors. The BDC and your local Small Business Enterprise Center offer mentorship programs specifically for Ontario founders. A great team isn't just who's on payroll, it's the entire ecosystem you build around yourself. We touched on this with Trap 1, but it deserves its own spotlight because so many founders fall for it. The dangerous belief that you only get one shot at a first impression, so everything has to be perfect before launch. The real cost is opportunity. While you spend a year polishing a feature you think is critical, a competitor launches a simpler, good enough solution and captures the market. By the time you emerge with your masterpiece, nobody cares, or your assumptions are stale. Remember, the MVP approach we covered in Trap 1 is your antidote here too. Build the smallest thing possible, get it to users, measure how they use it, learn from the data. If you're not a little embarrassed by the first version of your product, you launch too late. Build, measure, learn, repeat. The final trap is a slow death, ignoring your customers after launch. 14% of startups fail this way. A startup launches, gets initial traction, and the founders feel validated. They stop doing customer interviews. They stare at dashboards but never talk to the humans behind the numbers. Feedback they don't like gets dismissed as outliers. The product roadmap becomes an internal wish list, completely divorced from what users actually need. Churn climbs, engagement drops. A competitor who actually listens steals their users. And in Ontario, where the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act, PIPEDA, governs how you handle customer data, ignoring customers can also mean ignoring compliance. If your feedback processes collect personal information, make sure you're handling it properly. The fix. Bake customer interaction into your company's DNA from day one. Set a goal for everyone, engineers, designers, founders, to speak with at least one customer every single week. Pick up the phone, send personal emails, ask open-ended questions. What's the hardest part about using our product? Or, if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing, what would it be? When you get feedback, just listen. Don't get defensive. Look for patterns. If one person complains, it might be noise. If 5 people raise the same issue, that's your next priority. This continuous feedback loop is your guidance system. The companies that win aren't the ones with the best initial idea. They're the ones that listen, adapt, and evolve the fastest. If you're serious about building a resilient business in Ontario, or anywhere, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more practical, no-fluff guides just like this one. And to help you put these lessons into action, visit smallbusinessrisk.ca to access our Ontario Small Business Risk Library, practical toolkits built specifically for Ontario business owners navigating risk, compliance, and growth. We're also building a membership community for founders who want ongoing support, frameworks, and direct access to risk expertise. Check it out at smallbusinessrisk.ca. So there you have it, the 5 most fatal traps in the startup death zone. The no market need mirage, the running out of cash cliff, the weak team sinkhole, the perfect product fallacy, and the ignoring customers black hole. They're all connected. A weak team won't validate its ideas, will manage cash poorly, and will ignore customers while building a perfect product nobody wants. Survival isn't about one revolutionary idea. It's about systematically de-risking your journey. The discipline to do the unglamorous work, talking to users, watching your cash, building a balanced team, and staying compliant. Avoid these traps, and you give your startup the best possible chance, not just to survive, but to build something truly meaningful and lasting. Remember, this video is for education, not legal advice. For your specific situation, consult a qualified professional.